Game 22 of the Toronto Maple Leafs regular season as they head to Montreal to take on the Canadiens here tonight in a showdown of stoppable force versus movable object. And it kind of feels like a must-win for both teams. I mean, on one side, you've got the Maple Leafs. They just snapped a 5-game losing streak, but then they lose again to the Columbus Blue Jackets. And I know we got a moral victory out of that one. They played better, and you're missing a lot of guys, and you went to OT against Columbus and got a point, but it's only 1 point. It's not 2 points, so that's a defeat. And when you look at the standings, it was an opportunity to kind of tie yourself up with a bunch of other teams in the Eastern Conference and at least walk away being like, well, we're still in this thing and tied, but right now you're behind and you've dropped back from where some of those other teams are. And, you know, the East is still very, very tight right now. Anybody can jump through. A win for one team means that they jump 5 spots up the standings, and all of a sudden you're looking at a bunch of other teams who are on the outside looking in. It's a weird parity. Everybody's middle area average / not very good in the Eastern Conference right now. I mean, outside of like the Carolina Hurricanes, but it's a very open conference. And yet the Leafs dropping a point still feels a little bit defeating, even though we had the moral victory in that one. Now, you look at this game tonight against Montreal, you lose this one. You've now lost 7 of your last 8, and that's a bad place to be in, regardless of who's missing and who's not. That's something you don't really feel comfortable with as you head back to Toronto before you continue on this road trip where you have like 2 weeks without playing a game at home. And, you know, the comfort of your own bed and family and food. Obviously, after the game tonight, you get to go back home and sleep in that, but it's not that great if you've lost 7 of your last 8 before going into this. And then Montreal, on the other hand, they were world beaters coming out the gates. Everyone was looking at them like they were the goddamn Harlem Globetrotters on the other side. They could pass through whatever they wanted, skate up and down the ice. Everybody was scoring. It didn't matter who they played, how they played, whatever. They were walking away with wins. Well, they're on a skid. 5 straight losses, and losing to the Maple Leafs tonight ties the Maple Leafs with them in points in the standings. Now, points percentage-wise, it's a little bit different. The Maple Leafs at this point have played one more game than the Canadiens, but regardless, when you're this early on in the season, 1 game difference, and you're looking at a point total, if they're the same, Montreal's walking away with 6 straight losses, feeling not so great about themselves. It's a must-win game for both teams. I don't think either team feels that great going into this one, and I don't think walking away with a loss here tonight, either team feels that great themselves. I mean, on the Leafs side, you lose to Montreal here. As we pointed out, 7 of your last 8 you would have now lost, but you've also lost to a team that lost 5 straight going into this, and if you're Montreal, losing this one, you now drop to 6 straight. You lost on home ice. You don't trust your goaltending, and you're looking at a Leafs team with a depleted lineup. You're going, how did we lose to that? Nobody could feel great walking away with a loss here tonight. I don't think there's many moral victories that come from this one. So let's get into tonight's lineups. Who's in, who's out, who's playing with who. Today's video is a presentation, as always, of Bet365. I'm Zack Phillips. Let's get into it here over at Daily Faceoff to see what we've got for tonight's lines. Now, taking a look first and foremost at your first line, you'll notice Calle Jarnkrok back listed as the first line right winger with these guys. I point that out because Easton Cowan did finish the game with them the other day against the Columbus Blue Jackets. He ended up finishing with 20 minutes of ice time. Calle Jarnkrok dropped down and ended up finishing with around 1450 in that game. I pointed out here because I think it's important to note they're starting Jarnkrok on that line, but I think it'll be flexible. You know, it's listed as Bobby McMahon, Max Domi, Nick Robertson as line 2, and then Lawton Lorentz and Easton Cowan as line 3. I think Craig Berube is open to moving things around, changing guys up, and playing other guys with more minutes or in higher leverage situations if certain guys are playing better or certain guys are playing worse. So I see a situation here where Calle Jarnkrok starts there, but it doesn't mean he finishes there, which makes me feel a little bit better. But that said, I mean, I just would rather Easton Cowan play on that first line. But I'm not going to panic about it because while we all look at it and say Cowan should be in the top 6, Cowan should be on the first line, my counterpoint to it would be he still could play Lorentz, Lawton, and Cowan as your second line in a game like this tonight. Like, I don't definitively look at Domi, McMahon, and Robertson and say, That's your second line, like a Matthews and Nyes forces your lineup to be, where JT and Nylander then become your second line, and you say, well, they're not going to get more minutes than them. In a game like this, you can. You can move that third line up. You can give them more opportunities. You can give them higher leverage starts and situations and put Cowan in better positions, or just give him more minutes in general. And on top of that, where this line has been playing well together, at least in the one game, and then dating back to the preseason, if they are playing well, you can obviously just use them there. Or if not, if Cowan's going and you want to move things around, you can jump him up to the first line. So you have options here. You can be flexible with it. I'm not too concerned. That kind of covers your middle six. Obviously, I'll just point out here again, Max Domi to me is a guy that he should not and cannot be playing center for this group, and he should not be playing in your top six. And if he's playing center in your top six, I think you're making a colossal mistake. I like Max Domi. I think he's just an expensive piece to have as a guy who's your bottom six winger at $3.75 million. But regardless, he can produce some points. He can provide you some energy, some pushback, some, passion, I guess, for lack of a better term, when you look at these guys and you're like, we need guys who care. We need guys who give you know what. Max Domi's one of those guys. Sometimes he just makes bad decisions, and I think that gets exposed when he plays center, first and foremost, and when he plays top six, second, and when he plays center in your top six, it's just like a massive, massive black hole. And I think Craig Berube is doing this team and Max Domi a disservice by having him in this position, but we'll get to that as we continue on through the lineup here and what we've got going on. For your third line, happy with those guys. Got no problem there. Obviously, again, think Cowan could play top six, but it's fine if he starts on this line. I'm not going to haggle about that. Now, this is where I come to an issue. Your fourth line right now, Sammy Blais, Dakota Joshua, Matias Maccelli. I saw the internet was up in a storm earlier today being like, Sammy Blais, why is this guy playing, yada, yada, yada. Well, it's a point that Sammy Blais is from Montreal. His family's going to be in attendance. This is a cool opportunity for him. I have no issue, honestly, in a situation like this, playing Sammy Blais. It's a cool thing to have a guy play against his hometown team in his hometown with his family in attendance. It's a rivalry game. It's going to be a cool environment in there. He's a guy that can bring you energy anyways. He's not the best skater. He's not the best skilled player, but when it comes to that checking role for your bottom six, Sammy Blais can certainly provide that. So, I'm not going to freak out about Sammy Blais coming back in the lineup. And quite frankly, when you look at some of the guys who are playing right now, it's like, wow, I can't believe you're taking these players out of the lineup to play Sammy Blais. But that said, I do have an issue with who they did take out of this lineup, and that's Jacob Quillan. We're talking about center depth and this problem you're having at center where Max Domi is being forced into that position. You're obviously missing Austin Matthews and Nick Waugh, who cover your first line center and most of the time your third line center, which just shakes things out because JT becomes 2, Waugh becomes 3, Lawton becomes 4, and guys start to get back into their proper spots and positions in the lineup, and you get a little bit more center depth out of all of it. It makes you in a better position. They took the wrong guy out. Jacob Quillan was playing fourth line center and, in my opinion, was providing you a lot. When it came to energy, he's a skilled guy, I should say. He's a guy that can bring you intensity on the forecheck. He finished every hit that he had every time he was out there on the ice. He was playing physical. He was playing with some tenacity. He was playing with some passion. He looked like he was fighting for his NHL spot every day. And I know you're going to say, well, who do you take out? Well, Max Domi has been struggling greatly over the last little while. That's one of the guys. Dakota Joshua has not been playing that great over the last little while. That's another guy who's slotted in here tonight, as you see on Daily Faceoff, as your fourth line center. He could come out. Matias Maccelli, another guy who to me is just a warm body on the ice. He could come out. I think you've taken the wrong guy out here tonight. I think you've taken out a guy who has been playing with some energy, playing with some intensity, and not really making that many mistakes to the point of being like, you can't put him in the lineup or he's the first one out. For me to look at it and be like, it makes sense for Jacob Quillan to not play. There are other guys who are less deserving of the ice time they're getting right now and probably could have a message sent to them or a wake-up call sent to them by sitting in the press box, especially for a game like this, to be like, snap the hell out of it. You're not helping us at all. You're not providing what we need. It's time for you to figure it out, and send a message by putting them in the press box. Having some accountability, as we've hyped up here on this channel over and over again, and we expected Craig Berube to bring to this group. Sitting Jacob Quillan does not do that, in my opinion. That's a guy who's been playing well, who looks like he's got some legs. One of the problems this team has is they don't move very well. They're not that fast. They don't skate very well. Jacob Quillan provides that. I think you've taken the wrong guy out of this lineup, honestly. I mean, there are other guys that you could send a message to by taking them out and making an example of them in this situation, and I just think you've picked the wrong one. I really think you've picked the wrong guy. I mean, Craig Berube, we can say what we want. We can haggle about some of the individual small choices. Some of them I disagree with people. Some of them I agree with people. This is one I strongly believe Jacob Quillan should be playing tonight, especially at that 4C position. I know we want more out of Dakota Joshua, and the other side of the coin is like, well, maybe this kicks him into gear. Like, hey, we gave you a second life. We gave you a second chance. But what are we doing? You've got a guy who could play. Jacob Quillan can play. Play him. Like, fucking play the guy. Put him in a spot to play and keep that energy and keep that life. Don't make this lineup slower than it needs to be. Don't take that energy out of this group. Matias Maccelli, Dakota Joshua, they could come out for all I care. Max Domi, he could come out of this lineup for all I care. He's a guy who could have a message sent after that last game being like, yo, you're not playing that well, and you just made a colossal error to take away a second point from us in this game when we had actually played pretty well all night and played decently well in that overtime. You gave away the point. You made the bad pass, and then you got beat back to the net. That's a guy that could come out of this lineup, and yet he's still in there in your second line center. You want to move things around? Move Scott Laughton, Steven Lorentz, and Easton Cowan to your second line. Shift things around. Jacob Quillan plays as your 4C. I don't know who it is. Dakota Joshua, maybe he's your 3C, but you could find a way to make things work. You're finding a way to do it right now. Find a way to shift it around. There are other guys who could have come out. Even moving Domi down to 4C and taking Dakota Joshua out. I don't know. There's ways to do this, and I think you've picked the wrong path. That's your forward lines for tonight, though. Quickly here, we'll jump over to the defense. There's not really much to touch on. It's basically the same as what we've had over the last little while, as well as our power play. But looking at your first line, Morgan Rielly, Ekman Larsson, they go out there as your first line, first defensive pair. Morgan Rielly needs to be better. I mean, if you watched the post-game show the other day after the game against Columbus, we pointed out 2 goals that Columbus had in regulation, and Morgan Rielly being a prime suspect on both. The first one is skating the puck into the corner, not making a good play out of the zone, turning it over, and then it ends up getting trapped in your zone. Extended possession time for the Columbus Blue Jackets results in a goal. It also results in no net front coverage, no boxing out, and Morgan Rielly creeping up too high. That leads to an eye stack between him and John Tavares. And then on top of that, Voronkov screening Joseph Woll in front of the net. Puck hits Voronkov, goes in your net, and you've given up the first goal of the game. That's Morgan Rielly not making a heads-up play to Yarncroke to break it out of the zone. The second one is Morgan Rielly standing at the blue line about 5 feet inside, getting beat like a pylon. I know he's never been the most defensive guy, but like the first one's not a defensive thing. The first one is a terrible offensive decision on a breakout pass where you put it up the wall and it gets turned over. That one can be cleaned up. That's something Morgan Rielly should know better to do. He can move his feet. He's a guy who can skate with the puck. He's a guy who should be good making a good first pass. That's a bad decision. Results in the back of your net. The second one is a more defensive thing than it is an offensive or a puck moving thing. He just gets beat at the line. Like he straight up just gets beat at the line, standing like a pylon, looking through his legs going, oh no, how did that get there? That can't happen. That's unacceptable for a guy making $7.25 million. Like, that's a Darnell Nurse situation that you're dealing with. Thankfully, it's $2 million less, but just a bad situation all around for a guy who's playing that many minutes to be exposed like that as often as he is. Those kinds of things need to be tightened up. I can excuse some of the little defensive errors or getting beaten with things if he's going to produce points, but just flat out getting walked like that and being a primary cause for another goal against is not acceptable. You got to figure that out. Rest of the lineup, I thought Jake McCabe looked better. I thought Benoit looked better. Like, better is relative. What I'm saying better is not compared to where they were at last year. Better is compared to the first 19 games of the season where we looked at these guys and almost said they're unplayable. That's Benoit and Myers and Mermis more so than it is Jake McCabe. But even McCabe had struggled to begin this season. Kind of looked like he was back to himself a little bit against St. Louis on Tuesday, and then played well, I thought, against Columbus on Thursday. Not great, but better. Mermis, better as well. Again, then we'll go to Troy Stecher. Troy Stecher, in my opinion, has been a breath of fresh air back there. I think he moves the puck well. I think he gets involved in the offense. He gets up ice. He causes a little bit of a problem for attacking teams when they try to forecheck or dump the puck in, because if he goes back to retrieve it, he can at least transition out of it quicker than some of the other guys you've had here before. Myers, Benoit, Mermis in particular, two of which are still in your lineup, but even throw Brandon Carlo into that mix where those guys were going back to get the puck, and it was like you're watching like a tortoise go back to pick it up. And by the time they get there, they've got pressure on them. Even Benoit started to move his feet a little bit better on Tuesday and Thursday, so seeing that out of him is a positive sign. But Troy Stecher is a guy who can go back there and at least get to the puck quicker than what you were seeing before, so it's not an automatic race or battle lost like it's been over the last little while. With that, let's get to what we have for our best bet. Quick note, by the way, power play stays the same. Yarncroke, Tavares, Cowan, Nylander, and Riley. That's your first unit. And then goaltender that you're going to get tonight is, in fact, Joseph Woll. I don't think anybody's surprised by that. You'd rather not go to Hildeby. This is a big game. Joseph Woll is heating up here right now. You don't want to overwork the guy. It's something you got to be careful of, but hopefully Stolarz can come back soon. And when you're looking at a situation where it's like, if you lose tonight, you've lost 7 of your last 8, and you're basically below the Buffalo Sabres, you would rather avoid that. Let's just call it what it is. This is a must win. You're almost treating this as like a playoff game. We're going to put our best guy in there, handle the workload. It's early in the season. I think Joseph Woll can handle it. On the other side is Jacob Dobich. I don't know. I think if the Leafs can get to him early, they're in a good spot. You know that he is a little bit mentally fragile. If you can get a lot of shots on him and maybe make him feel it a little bit, maybe put one past him early in the game, maybe it starts to turn for him where all of a sudden it's like, uh-oh, I can't do it. You saw him play great to start the season, basically hold the Habs in games, and then he loses one game and he's crying after the game. And I'm not making a joke of him doing that, but it's just he's feeling the pressure right now. Marty St. Louis takes him after he goes and wins, was one of the 3 stars of the month in October, basically doesn't play him for a while. He gets back in the net finally and gets his tits lit. He's not in a good place right now. You have to take advantage of that if you're the Maple Leafs. Thankfully, this is a team that can score goals, so you got to get on him early. But that's your goaltending matchup tonight. Best bet time now. Best bet is a presentation of Bet365. Whatever your bet is, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code NATION. That's NATION. Code NATION. NATION. At Bet365. Must be 19 plus. Ontario only. Please play responsibly. Best bets have not gone that great over the last little while. Let's call it what it is. I think part of this here is Leaf slump trends with betting slumps here on the show. We have now lost a few straight. The last couple, you look back to that Columbus game, we lost 2 there. Nick Robertson to achieve 1+ point does not do so. That was a half unit loss on that one. We also had Easton Cowan 1+ power play point. In my defense, I think that was the right concept. The power play stinks, so maybe we should just avoid that in general, but if you watched Easton Cowan on that power play, I think he was the most dangerous player. Maybe it came off the sticks of John Tavares and William Nylander, but I think if you look at where the root of those opportunities were for the Leafs, it was Easton Cowan causing those. Retrieving pucks, winning battles, winning races, not letting pucks go back out and having to regroup so frequently. He was able to carry the puck into the offensive zone, so he was a big contributor to that, and I thought he looked pretty good, but regardless, it loses. Tonight, we're on with 2 anytime goal scorers. We are down to $5 of profit on the season. We're 10-22 as our record. Again, because we're giving out some of these big plus monies, the record doesn't matter that much. It's just about profit. But right now, we're hurting. $5 in profit on the season. So we're going to go and look over at Bet365 for tonight's best bet with 2 anytime goal scores. First, Montreal is heavily favored in this one, minus 140 against the Leafs, plus 120 for Toronto. The total is 6.5 plus 100 to the over, minus 120 to the under. I'll be honest, in a situation like this, I probably start to lean more towards the Maple Leafs as they get into the plus money side of things. Against the Habs, Habs are fun, they're young, they're mature. I'm interested to see what happens if the Maple Leafs can have some type of heavy forechecking game and get on goaltending early. And with how fragile the team has been in Montreal over the last little while, I feel like the door's open for a Maple Leafs win tonight. But we're not betting there. We're going to goal scores. So we're going to the player props tab, clicking show more. And the first one that we're going to find is none other than Easton Cowan at plus 350. So we're going to go a half unit on Easton Cowan at plus 350. I know he's playing on the third line, but as I mentioned, I think third line is a loose term. I think third line can very quickly become second line. I think Cowan we could see him play 20 minutes, 18 to 20 minutes here tonight. I think he's out there for every power play opportunity you get. And if things are going well for him and he looks as good as he did on Thursday, I could see Easton Cowan getting bumped to the first line, in which case more opportunities offensively come for the guy. So plus 350, I still feel like is like the early days of Matthew Nyes, where he's getting his opportunities, he's playing with the right guys, and you're just pricing him that way because we haven't seen him yet. I think Cowan can produce. He was hard on himself after the game on Thursday, saying, hey, I got to bury. If I did, we probably win this game. I think there's a fire lit under his ass before this one tonight. So I think Easton Cowan is a prime candidate to score for the Maple Leafs tonight. $50 on that one, on the half unit at plus 350. The other one, we're going to go a little bit further down. This is a bit of a long shot, so we're going to go on Scott Lawton, blacked out there. Scott Lawton plus 800 is our second best bet. We're going to play this small. We're just going to go with a $10 bet on Scott Lawton. $10 at plus 800 profits you here tonight, $80. So a small one for tonight's game, but we got two best bets, two rooting interests. They're on the same line. I could see a situation where they get hot together. They're playing real well. They're feeding off of each other. Maybe they both capitalize. Maybe Berube moves them up, plays them as the second line. And then if not, Scott Lawton's still a guy who brings that energy, brings intensity, does the right things. So I could see him scoring, just getting fired up for like this rivalry game. And then Cowan, as I mentioned, the plus 350, I think we're just getting a good price on him. So $50 on Cowan would profit you $175 here tonight. That is your game preview. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe here to the channel. Drop your thoughts down below in the comments. Are the Leafs winning, losing? How do you think this game goes? As well, what are your best bets for this one? So thank you to everyone who tuned in here today. I will see everyone following tonight's game against the Montreal Canadiens right here on this channel, Leaf Station 401, for another Leaf Station After Dark. Until then, keep believing. For more content just like this, including game previews, post-game live shows, Leafs Morning Take Monday through Friday with Nick Alberga and Jay Rosehill with special guests, as well as instant reaction videos, make sure to be subscribed here to the Leafs Nation YouTube channel. Turn on notifications so you don't miss anything, and drop a like.